Shannon, thank you for joining me today on the Financial Planner Live podcast, all the way from the Northeast.
Yes, hello.
How you doing, you all right?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fabulous, very good, thank you, very, very good. So Shannon, today you're here to tell us a little bit about Lowe's Financial Academy, aren't you? And what you're doing in respect of helping the next generation and some of the existing people within financial planning get through some of those tough qualifications through the CII. And
yes. Yeah, mainly focusing on the level 4 diploma at the moment.
Focusing on the level 4 diploma at the moment. Okay, great stuff. Because your background is quite interesting. Let's get into that first of all, actually, because you're not from a financial planning background, are you?
No, not originally.
Tell us a little bit about that. And how do you manage to transfer across to becoming a trainer within financial planning then?
So my background is I am actually a trained maths teacher. So from leaving sixth form, I first of all did an undergraduate degree in law, worked a little bit in that for barely a few months, wasn't enjoying it in the slightest. Went back to university, retrained as a maths teacher, worked as a maths teacher for the next few years. It was at that point that I met Helen, who is also leads the academy with me. So me and Helen have built the academy up, and we are both the trainers that work at the academy. So we had the classrooms next door to each other, so both maths teachers. And Helen already knew Ian Laws, our managing director, and he had approached her with the idea of, I'd really like to set this academy up. I need people who I know can teach and can explain things, and are also confident, you know, getting up and speaking in front of people, because people might have the knowledge, but not everybody likes doing that. So it was finding the people who are happy to do that. Helen approached me and said, what do you think? Should we give it a go? So it was at that point that we started sitting our exams, obviously because we needed to be qualified in order to be able to teach the content. And then it was after we became qualified that we then took the plunge to leave teaching officially and start working at Lowe's and build that academy up.
Very interesting. So working in the teaching profession, what age were the kids?
So age 11 to 16, so it was secondary school. I was qualified to do A level as well, but the school that I happened to work in didn't have a sixth form, so mainly 11 to 16.
So yeah, if you can train 11 to 16-year-olds to understand GCSE, well, it's GCSE level mathematics, isn't it? You can certainly try and get people to understand financial planning. But you yourself then thought, right, I'm going to take that plunge from teaching into financial planning. Now, we know really there isn't a huge amount of information out there discussing and sort of shining a light on the financial profession, the financial planning profession specifically. That's why I set the podcast up, to kind of interview people to talk about the realities of working in the role. So when she turned around to you, Helen said, you know, would you be interested in becoming a trainer within financial planning? What was your first thoughts?
First of all, I thought, wow, this sounds like a huge opportunity and an endless opportunity that we can, you know, make something really good out of this. But then, like you say, my next step then was to go away and actually think about, like, what actually is this? You know, everyone's heard of financial advice, but I think usually when people say I work in finance, you automatically think of accountancy. Mm-hmm. Not many people, you know, go down the planning route when you initially think of that. And I think another thing that is a common misconception is that it's purely just investments. But obviously it was then finding out that actually it could be advising on pensions, you know, tax planning, inheritance tax. Before I did, you know, my exams, I had no idea that you could end up paying inheritance tax even though you've been paying tax your whole life. That was something that was absolutely new to me. So it was finding out all of these new things, and that I then started to feel the need to pass on to people I know. So I was saying to my mum, did you know if you don't start planning 7 years in advance, you could end up paying tax again? And it was all of these things that were absolutely brand new to me.
Okay, cool. So were you doing that study alongside your full-time job as a teacher?
Yes.
Crikey, that's a bit tough, isn't it? You have a lot of homework, etc.
It was a very tough year, but we knew it was a means to an end. So, you know, I was working, like you say, teaching is a lot of hours and a lot of hard work. We were managing to time it so that we sat an exam every time we had holidays, so every half term or every, you know, like Easter and what have you, we were using that time to do the exams. The studying was obviously having to be done on weekends and on weeknights, so we spent our time meeting up regularly and revising together. And it was then that we realised that the academy needed to provide an area where people could come together as a group. Because I quickly learned that I can't revise on my own. If I'm left to do it on my own, I won't do it. I could sit and read the same page 5 times and think, I am still not taking this in. And it's not until I'm given the opportunity to talk it through with someone that it actually clicks. And I know that I'm not alone in that. So that's why we built the academy on how have we managed to do it and what would we have found useful when we were studying.
Okay, so when you were actually studying towards that then, and you guys were coming together and helping each other, did you engage externally with any trainers, or did you use the training material that was provided by the CII?
No, we basically just used the textbook and then worked together. We did attend, I think we attended a revision day for RO6, and that was the only one where we used another training provider. But other than that, no, we just had the textbook and each other.
So anybody listening right now who's thinking about taking those qualifications, the RO1s to RO6, and they're thinking about using the study material that comes directly from the CII, you've gone through the process and you've looked at it and you've learned what works, what doesn't work when you take that approach. What advice would you give to them? What would you say to them? My
advice would be, if you are, you know, just using the CII textbook, is to make sure that you are taking notes, that you're not just sitting reading. You need to actually be doing something for your brain to remember, otherwise it's just going to go in and then the next day you're going to have forgotten what you've read. Another good tip as well is to make revision flashcards. So from once you've, you know, completed the textbook, you've read it, you've made your notes, I would then be going to your notes, and rather than just rereading your notes, make flashcards from the notes, so you are then doing something with the information again. And then you can use those flashcards to repeatedly ask yourself the questions. If you know the answer straight away, put that card to one side. You know that you didn't struggle recalling that fact. Anything that you've hesitated on or you didn't know, you keep asking them ones over and over and over, and eventually that second pile will get smaller and smaller and smaller. So break it down into sort of those manageable chunks and learn it that way. That's a really good bit of advice, actually, because I'm starting to do a qualification around counselling, and I'm sort of dreading the actual reading of the books themselves and having to kind of remember the information. So for me, that's a really useful tip as well, actually. So having a stack of them, going through a stack of them, as you learn as you go along, build a stack of ones that you know, and then continue working through the ones that you don't know. Yeah. Perfect. But you decided, right, well, okay, we're going to do the financial qualifications through the ROs, through the CII. We'll get through that to level 4. And then I'm going to step across into training other people to go through those RO qualifications. You and Helen came together with Ian and you set up the academy there at Lowe's Financial Management. So it's called the Lowe's Financial Academy. That's what you guys have now set up. So how long has that been going for? So we officially launched our first course in October 2020. So we are still pretty new. Yeah. When we first launched, we only did the RO2 course, and at each following launch, we've added a course on. So now we are at the stage where we are delivering courses for RO1 through to RO4. We do have a course for RO5, but we run that slightly differently. So for RO1 and RO4, those are live courses where we are given weekly workbooks out. Those workbooks, we went through the CII textbook for every single one of the courses, and we've picked out what we know are the key points, because there is a lot in there that is just there for information. So we've broken it down into the key points. We've wrote it in user-friendly language. I don't know if you've ever picked up the CII textbook, but it's not the easiest read. So we have broken it down and made the language a bit more easy to understand, especially for those people who aren't already in financial services and might not understand the terminology. But not only have we included the reading, we've put activities in there as well. And like I said earlier, unless you are doing something with the information you're reading, you're not going to retain it. So that's why we've made sure we've got activities throughout, so that actually you've got to do something with that information that you are being given, and that's going to help cement that in your mind. When we then come to the webinar, so for the live courses, we do a weekly webinar. We keep those groups quite small, maximum sort of 12 to 13, just because we found that once they got bigger, we sort of lost that personal touch and people weren't as willing to get themselves involved in the session. So the smaller the group, the better. We go through the key points, we discuss the answers to the activities, we do exam practice on every single session, so they get plenty of, they get used to what the questions look like and how they are worded, and they also get to have discussions with their peers as well as us as the tutors, and address any misconceptions that they have. So it's very interactive and very dynamic. That's for R1 to R04. What we do for R05, because we found that there wasn't really as much need to be having a weekly webinar for R05. So instead for that one, what we offer is you've got 2 stages where it's still got the reading material, so the workbooks that we've designed, you've still got the activities, but you get answer sheets for those to go back to. And instead of having a weekly group session, you are entitled to a one-to-one session at the end of each stage with either myself or Helen, where we then talk through everything that you've read, just because we found that there wasn't really that much need for a 12-week course like there was for R1 to R04.
Okay, cool. Out of interest, what order did you take your ROs in personally?
I did them in the order that they come, so R01 to R06. If I was going back, and this is what we recommend people to do now, I would start with R02, which is the investment principles and risk course. The reason being, R02 gives you a strong understanding of the different asset classes. It goes into, you know, different products, so your collective funds, your insurance bonds, all that kind of stuff. And it's a bit more interesting if you're just starting out. If you are brand new, you know, you maybe not working in financial services yet, maybe you just want to get one of the exams done so that it looks good on your CV, I would not recommend that person to start with R01, because they are going to look at that and think, oh my God, I don't want to work in financial services. This is really, really boring, because R01 is all just about regulation and ethics. Obviously, it's extremely important. Everybody needs to know what's expected of them, but it's not the most exciting one. And if you want to attract people into the profession, you want to start with R02, which is about your shares and your investments and all that, which is the exciting stuff that you're going to be working with on a daily basis. So
the exciting and interesting, but that's a really good point, actually. You know, a lot of companies, you know, I've dealt with over the years, tend to put people through the qualification starting at R01. And it is a slog, isn't it? You know, yeah. I did the FPC one back in the day, and that was the same, all the regulations and everything. And I was just terribly bored of that. And I think the training and the sort of teaching that I had was tape based. So I'd be walking to work with a tape, like a Walkman, listening to the FPC, like guys speak, you know, talk through the book. Yeah. Just, oh my God, this is like, I was working in financial services as well, but it's a slog. It's not very sexy, is it? It's not very interesting. No. It's like, you want to make people get excited about it and think, wow, this is going to be amazing. I want to learn about the regulated side because I want to be able to do the job. Yeah, almost like an introduction, isn't it?
Some people start with R05 as well, purely to build the confidence up, because R05 is a level 3 exam, whereas the rest of them that make up the diploma are level 4.
Yeah.
So if it was someone who was maybe had been out of studying for a while and was maybe a little bit worried about starting exams again, R05 might be a good starting point because it is a little bit easier. It doesn't get quite into technical and nitty-gritty as the other ones do, and that might help build someone's confidence up, because if they pass that, they'll think, oh, right, well, there's the first hurdle done, and then they'll be ready to move into level 4. So it doesn't really need to be sat in any order. I know someone personally who has sat RO4, which is the pensions exam, but has no intention of sitting any of the other ones. Purely sat that one because it was relative to her job and she wanted to understand a little bit more. So you don't have to have done, you know, RO1 or RO2 before moving on to those, but yeah.
So let's talk about some of the people that come through your academy then. So you've been running since 2020, you said, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so straight in the pandemic then, you know, you had an idea probably going to, wait, you say you had an idea, didn't you, that you were going to be running it from a office face-to-face, and then you were thrown into online, yeah?
Yeah, so before we left our teaching job and before we, you know, made that move to come and work for Lowe's, the idea was that we were going to have a classroom and we were going to be targeting people obviously in the northeast who were close by to be able to be on day release from their job or whatever and come in for an afternoon a week and work with us. Obviously then the pandemic hit and we thought, oh my God, that plan is not going to work. What are we going to do? And then we discovered Zoom, which I'm sure I'm not alone in that I had never heard of Zoom before the pandemic, had never used it. Obviously everyone had heard of Skype, but yeah. I had never heard of Zoom. And it was then that we realised that actually our plans did not need to go on hold. And actually it was going to be better because we could market the academy to a much wider audience.
That happened. You found that sort of you were pulling in sort of candidates for the academy from all over the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had people from Ireland on our course. We've had people from London. We have had local people as well, but the majority have been all over Scotland. We've actually got someone on a course at the minute who is from Canada, because his wife is from Liverpool and they're looking to relocate back to Liverpool. So he wants to get his UK qualifications. And if the academy hadn't went virtual, we would never have been able to make those connections.
You've obviously taught face-to-face, albeit 11 to 16-year-olds. Do you think there's a massive difference, though, with learning through Zoom than learning face-to-face? And is there a certain type of candidate that comes to the academy that might not benefit as much as, say, somebody that learns well that way?
It depends. Like I say, we try to keep the groups small. We have run revision sessions with more people on as a trial to see if it works. And when it gets to that, there's too many people on, that's when it doesn't work. Because it's more likely that people will not want to put their cameras on. People are less likely to get involved and have the mic on. And then it just becomes a lecture where I am just lecturing about a topic to faceless black boxes. Yeah. Down the side of the screen, and then that doesn't work. You need to have people interact with. We found that keeping the group small to 12 to 13 people actually still creates that classroom environment. And it's quite funny because obviously we are working with people for 12 weeks at a time. By the end of the 12 weeks, I feel like I know those people who have been on the course really well. We start to chat about things that aren't always to do with the course, and we learn things about each other just as if they were in the room. And then it's really funny because you think, I've never met this person. You know, would I recognise them if I walk past them on the street? I would hope so. But it is a little bit strange in that sense, but that's why we keep it small so that we can still create that classroom environment.
I think that's important to me. If I was going to do something like that, I wouldn't want to be a face in the crowd just because you're trying to cram as many people as you can in as possible and make as much money. The feeling that you were making it smaller and more intricate and more personal would really, really work for me, because it would, again, give me that confidence to be able to speak up when need be. So how small is small groups? So if someone was thinking about joining you guys and getting their qualification training through you, how many people do they expect to be in a group with?
The maximum that we allow on a live course at the time is 12 to 30 at an absolute push. Once we get to that, we would say that that course is full. However, not everybody attends the live sessions. At the same time, we have some people, because we do record all of them, because we know that, you know, sometimes you might have a meeting that you can't get out of, or childcare issues or what have you. So we record them all. So we tend to not always have 100% attendance, and we usually have a maximum of around 8 people attending live, and then the rest of the people sort of dipping in and out and watching the recordings.
So let's say for each, I'm just going to delve a bit deeper on like things like this, because I think it's in the back of people's minds when they're thinking about getting training. It's just how much training they get, how many hours is that, how much are they going to learn when they're in the Zoom lessons, how much is homework and all of that. So I think it's important because people think about it but don't tend to have the confidence to ask. So yeah. When you do these qualifications, the RO to RO6, now I speak to people that some people have whizzed through them in 6 months, some people have done it in 12 months, some people have taken years to do it. Do you think that going through an academy such as yours helps people progress through the qualifications quicker than, say, doing it on their own? Is it, is it proven? Do you know that?
It varies. I mean, obviously, like I say, we run the courses for 12 weeks at a time, and that is per unit.
Right.
So if you were enrolling on one at a time, it's going to take you, maybe 2 years to do the full diploma. Some people are happy with that because they want to take the time and they want to make sure that they're not putting themselves under too much pressure, and they want to be able to really make sure that they really understand everything on that one course. But on the other hand, we have people that enroll on more than one at a time.
Right.
So we've got someone at the moment who did RO1 and RO2 on our September intake, and then they passed them, and then now they've enrolled on RO3 and RO4 in our January intake. RO5 won't probably take them too long after that, and then it'll just be about whenever the next available RO6 date is. So he'll probably be looking at managing to get through them in maximum a year by the time they've done RO6.
Cool, that's interesting. Some people are just very good at studying, aren't they, and sort of managing multiple subject matters. And I think not everybody's like that. So it's suitable for some, not suitable for the other. Can I just ask though, within that 12, like you said, it's 12 weeks, right? Each module, 12 weeks. Is that like one session per week? What do you?
Yes. So at the start, we'll have an induction webinar. We'll explain, how the course is going to run. Then you are issued your first week of reading material. You'll complete that week of reading material, and then there'll be a webinar the following week, and it goes on like that. Once we get to week 6, at that point, we have a week where we go over what we've covered so far. So we touch base with what we've done. We do a live mid-course mock, where they're getting instant feedback. We're explaining what the answers should have been if they got it incorrect. They send us their answer sheet in, and we give them some personalised feedback to help them identify maybe which workbook they need to go back to and have another little look at. So that week 6 is a little bit of a break, and let's see how you're doing so far. Then we have another 5 weeks of new content, and then on the 12th week, we'll have a revision session where we go over everything from start to finish. So it's 10 weeks of learning content and 2 weeks where you're going back over stuff.
You mentioned there about things like the mock exams and whatnot, mock cases. Do you sort of provide those online? Are they provided within the cost of the course? Do you have to pay extra for like mock tests? How does that work with you guys? Because some charge them, don't they?
That mid-course mock, we do that via Zoom. So that is live, where we'll be putting the questions up and they will answer them as we go along. So that's how we do the mid-course one. At the end, we do a similar thing in week 12, covering everything from start to finish, but that one we're not going to ask what mark they got, or it might not even be just the 100 questions. Sometimes we have more because we want to cover as much as possible. But we also provide revision materials in that last week as well, whereby they get 2 mock exams for them to do in their own time, and they also get revision flashcards that we bought as well to use.
And do you yourself and Helen, do you sit the exams as well each time a new exam comes out, or do you tend to just sort of, that's it for you now exam wise? Do you ever kind of
at the moment, we are focusing on getting our fellowship. So that's the focus at the moment. Helen has just achieved her level 6.
Nice.
Unfortunately, I was on, well, I say unfortunately, I was on holiday on the dates of the last EF sittings. So my last EF exam is actually in 2 weeks' time. So fingers crossed I should have my level 6 after that. And then we've just got a couple of other exams to fill in the gaps for fellowship. And then I think once we've achieved that, we'll then go back to redoing the level 4 exams and making sure that we keep up to date with the types of questions that they're asking.
Mm-hmm.
We do, because obviously we have members of staff here at Laws who are sitting their exams. We do have a chat with them as soon as they come out of their exam and get them to say, right, are our questions that we're asking in our courses, do they set you up for their exam? Are they the right type of questions? And the majority of the time we're saying, yeah, the questions that you wrote are exactly how they are worded in the exam. So we do keep in touch with what's going on.
So it's as close to the exam as it could possibly be to give them the best chance of going in there and not being absolutely shocked when they sit down with the questions and go,
I think obviously we can never predict what's going to come up. We can tell them how the learning outcomes are weighted, and we can try and cover as many different variations of questions as possible, but we're never going to be able to practice absolutely every question, because sometimes, you know, the exam that you get may have completely different questions on the exam that the person sitting next to you gets. I think RO3, everyone always wants me to be able to tell them how many calculation questions are they going to have, and it's not something that we can predict. I had a couple who were on an RO3 course, they sat their exam on the same day. He only had 2 calculation questions and her exam was very calculation heavy. So we can't predict it, but all we can do is try and make sure you've had enough practice so that you can tackle anything that comes up.
So running an academy is quite a time-consuming, costly thing to do. And within the financial planning profession, there are a huge amount of small to medium enterprises as well, aren't there?
Yes.
Small little financial planning firms that are going to be growing. And I see more of that happening. I genuinely believe we're in a very much of in a startup phase within the financial planning profession, due to the ease of how you know, setting up a business and the technology and everything there to support people nowadays. So it's only going to get more and more and more. But as those companies want to grow and the staff becomes less and less and less that are out there, they're vying for the talent, aren't they? So they're going to have to start thinking about, well, how am I going to bring new people on that perhaps don't have experience? How am I going to train and develop them and coach them and support them whilst I'm trying to write business? So having an academy is a vital part of helping the profession grow and attract new talent, whether that's upskilling existing staff at firms or whether that's attracting people from outside of the profession. Teachers, for example, like yourself. I've spoken to numerous teachers now that really are turning their heads to the financial planning profession, saying like, well, actually, I've been teaching people my whole life. I could go and fall into the financial planning profession and take my education piece with me and really sit down with people and transfer those skills across. Some of the things that some people don't tend to have, it's always been historically quite a salesy type role. Yes. And I think the training and the education piece lends itself beautifully to the financial planning profession. But being an academy that's attached to a financial planning firm or part of the group, that might put a few firms off sending their staff to you. What would you say in that situation?
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that we really want to get across is that this academy is not seen to be something that our managing director wants to be making him a huge profit. He actually sees it as a social responsibility. And we want to be able to help those small and medium firms who, like you say, either don't have the capacity or the time or the facility or whatever to be able to support their new staff, but they need to develop the new staff because they obviously need to grow their business. And that's where we come in. You know, we are not trying to poach anybody's staff. You know, obviously, like I say, we're based in the Northeast. A lot of the people who we have coming through the courses are not in the Northeast, so there wouldn't be any use to us anyway trying to get people to come to us because they live so far away. What we are really trying to do is to help the financial services industry. And we want to be able, you know, those exams don't have a great pass rate, and some people might be sitting there in a firm who are really talented but are really put off by the exams, and that's where we can really help, you know, accelerate your staff's exam success And then in turn, that's really going to help grow your business, because then you're going to have more qualified staff. So that's what we're trying to do. I mean, obviously at the moment, financial services is an ageing profession. We really need to get more people qualified, and particularly young people, and getting them to know what financial services is from them leaving school is a big push of ours as well. We are both ambassadors of the CII, so we've done sessions in schools as well, getting them to know about how to manage your money and what working in financial services is. We're here to support, really.
Fab. So what have you been doing? Have you been going into colleges and schools and things and sort of teaching the students about the profession and sort of shining a light on it to try and attract more people at a younger age?
Yeah, so, well, at the moment it's been virtual. So we've done a couple of virtual sessions through the CII. So the CII have links with different schools, and the schools will have certain themed days. So if the day is to do with finance, then we get in touch with the CII, and then either myself or Helen as ambassadors will be asked if we're free, and then we'll run a session on whatever it is that the CII wants us to run a session on. And we are also, you know, talking to universities. I think we've got a speed dating event at Northumbria University in a couple of weeks' time. And just trying to get some of the finance, and not just finance graduates, actually, it's open to anybody really, but trying to get people to think about starting a career in financial services, and why it would be a good move for them.
Having an insight into the curriculum within secondary schools, do you think that they are not focusing enough on financial education, or do you think they do enough? Because I've not been to school for a while.
Me personally, I think it could be better.
Yeah.
You know, all schools should have what's the word I'm looking for, curriculum where they will do things that aren't covered in lessons, and that's usually covered in your tutor time. So, but that's usually only 15 minutes at the start of the day. And so you can't really get a lot done in that time. By the time you get them in, we get the coats off, and they've told you who they've been arguing with on the way into school or whatever else has went on. Then getting them sat down and trying to get them to do something in that first 15 minutes of school can be difficult. I did have a class before who were complaining to me, saying, and the one that they loved to do all the time, especially when we were doing trigonometry or Pythagoras, I'm never going to use this again. Why can't you teach us something useful? Obviously, a lot of them will go on to be engineers and realise that actually they will use it again and they will need to know that. But that's, you know, another story. And there was a time where I said to them, right, if you promise me you let me get through this lesson without complaining, the next lesson we'll do a lesson on whatever you want to do it on. And they all wanted to do it on just life. So they wanted to know about, you know, what's my career options? What salary will that get me? How do I get a mortgage? What does water cost? A lot of them didn't even realise you had to pay for water, and that absolutely blew the mind. You know, what do the interest rates mean? If I get a credit card, how much am I going to be paying back? So I did actually do that for them, and they were all over the moon. But it is difficult for teachers because they do have so much to get through that you don't always have the luxury of having the time. And I do think that there should be more emphasis on managing your finances in schools.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people can come out of school, they can look on YouTube and they can get their advice from somebody who's drinking a cocktail on the beach, you know, saying he's just made a shed load of money out of cryptocurrency, and they're coming spending all their money on it, and they don't really understand why they're not making money or they're losing money, you know, because they're following advice from the wrong types of people. And I think that financial education, the age just kind of teaches them even like what stocks and shares are or something like that. And it's exciting and it's interesting, because who doesn't want to think about like making more money, you know? That's the, you know, especially in a young age where they're kind of they've got that entrepreneurial growth mindset, you know, they're thinking about that, they want to know about it, but no one's really teaching them. It's a bit of a, you know, keep them in the dark and feed them shit type situation sometimes. I think financial education, the more I speak to people who are going into the schools and talking about financial education, the feedback is kids get incredibly excited about it.
Oh, they do. It was probably one of the best lessons I'd ever done when I scrapped off the curriculum and did that, because the way I'd structured it, they all had, there was 4 different options of houses that would buy, or 4 different options of cars that would have, or what have you. And obviously all of them wanted the biggest house and the Range Rover and what have you. And then as we got later in the lesson, and there was this one lad who then he decided that he had 5 kids. And then when he realised how much they were going to cost him, he was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to sell the Range Rover. And it was so funny seeing them get into it and realising actually the kind of things that their parents are having to think about. And, you know, why their parents are saying, actually, no, you can't have that pair of trainers because we've just they had to put new tyres on the car or whatever else it is. And it was really interesting actually seeing them get excited about it. And they didn't realise that they were doing maths. They were doing maths the whole lesson. But they didn't realise because they were so into it.
You can say as simple as compound interest. When someone explains,
I mean, that is on the curriculum,
is it?
and that is always a good lesson as well. When they see the money in the bank growing over time, that's an interesting one. But yeah,
if someone's starting out on their journey right now to become a financial planner, and they're, you know, perhaps they haven't had the luxury of working within a firm as an administrator or a power planner, you know, let's look at the realities of not the role itself, but the study towards it. So, you know, you mentioned 12 weeks to get through, and you said 2 years potentially. If you follow what it is you do, the structure one by one, then you're looking at kind of like 2 years to pass. You know, realistically, if someone says, well, I can get through that in 6 months or whatever, do you think it's like, realistically, if you're doing your qualifications, it's going to take you 2 years, and that's a fair estimate of the time it's going to take you?
It's very subjective, because like you say, some people can get through the content a lot quicker and have a lot more time on their hands. If you're fresh out of university and you don't have a family and you don't have, you know, a job that it has got demanding hours and a demanding workload, then you probably can work through them a lot quicker and be doing more than one at a time. Equally, because you are used to studying for more than one exam at a time anyway, because you've just finished university. Whereas if you are somebody who is having to balance working full time and studying, and you've got a family and you've got other commitments, and it's been 10 years since you last studied, then yeah, I would recommend taking your time a little bit more and doing them the one at a time and doing it over the 2 years. And just because you think, oh God, 2 years, that's a long time, it absolutely flies. But not only that, just because you haven't got the full qualification yet, doesn't mean that that couldn't still kickstart your career move on new career, because a lot of firms will be willing to employ people in a then more junior role with maybe just 1 or 2 of the exams, with the idea that once they have then got all of the exams, then they can progress further.
We often say to people that come to us without any experience of working within a financial planning role, whether it be administration or any entry-level role, really, we always say to them, look, you know, go off and get a qualification first. It's going to make your CV look good. You know, it's going to make your CV look good because any potential employer will see that you're serious about doing it, but also that you've got the ability to pass an exam. And they'll like to see that. So we always do say that. How, of all the people that have come through your academy, what percentage of people do you think come from, or do you know that come from outside the profession without any experience, to those that are already in the profession and coming to you to get that extra exam support because perhaps their company don't have in-house trainers?
I don't know the percentage off the top of my head. To be honest, I would say it was maybe about 20% roughly of people who are sitting the exam because they want to break into the industry.
Right.
So like I said, we've had a few people who have sat the exam straight from university. We had someone who was on the course who was working in care but wanted to move into financial services. We've had people who had worked in financial services but in a completely different capacity. So we had quite a few people who they'd been working as claims case handlers for PPI. So they'd gotten a little bit of a taste for financial services, but that was very niche. And then obviously when that came to an end, they wanted to be able to stay within financial services. So then they came on the courses. But then I would say the rest of the people are made up with either people who have worked in financial services for a very long time, but for whatever reason had put off doing the exams. And when we spoke to people, that was either, sometimes it was down to maybe an employer who didn't give them the time to be able to do it. But also the confidence of being able to sit the exams, and then when they seen what we were offering as the academy, they liked the sound of that and thought, you know what, that is going to help me rather than just sitting with the textbook.
Do you get a lot of stories of people that come to you that have been sitting there with the textbook for like a year on their books?
We've had people who have said, you know, I've attempted this exam 3 times now, and I'm still getting no closer to passing. And then when they've then sat the exam after they've done the course, they've passed. And sometimes it's because you could be reading something and you could be misinterpreting that information. But if then, even if you read it 3 times, you've still misinterpreted it. So you're carrying that misconception through. Whereas with the academy, they might have that misconception when they read the workbook, but then as soon as they attend the webinar, that misconception's gone because we address that straight away. And so it means that they're getting everything right from the start.
So they can identify what that means within a certain scenario as well. Real world experience. Cool. Okay, well, that's really good. Well, it sounds really, really positive then. It sounds like everything's going in the right, moving in the right direction. So people are coming through the academy. You yourself have made a complete, you know, change in respect of your own personal career into financial planning. And interestingly, like, would you ever, you know, reading through your exam, you know, going through your exams, doing your exams, you're coming up to, you know, fellow, has it not sort of made you think, do you know what, I want to do the job of a financial planner? There's not enough women in financial planning, you know, like you haven't thought about sidestepping and becoming a financial planner?
Yeah, I am very keen to get involved in that side of things as well. I have actually, over the last year, whilst doing the academy, have also been working closely with the advisors as well. The team that you can see sat behind me here, this is our client servicing team. The reason that our office is here is because we're helping them out as well. So we do get involved with other stuff as well. Obviously, our priority at the moment is to grow and establish the academy. And once that's established, then we can spend a little bit more of our time in the advice side of things.
Do you get involved in the T&C side, sort of CAS status and all of that, and helping them get signed off at Lowe's financial management?
Our compliance department does that.
Yeah, cool. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today. So give us an insight into what you guys are doing there and how it's going and everything. Just finally sort of finishing on it, you know, if I was to come and join Lowe's Academy, go through my qualifications, what's the pass rate with you guys then?
So currently we have 85% of our students passing their exams first time, which we are really proud of, because when you compare that with the actual pass rates of the exams, you know, R03 and R04 are around about 50%. So our pass rate is really good. And of those people who didn't pass first time, 100% of them have went on to pass second time. And usually the people who have failed, they've failed by 1 or 2 marks, and it's always the same story. We always get emails, oh my God, I was 1 mark off. But then at least they know, you know, that's a tiny little tweak, and then you're ready to get straight back into it and pass that second time.
So if somebody's interested in either sending their staff to you guys to get them trained up, or somebody's listening to this podcast who's going to take it upon themselves to do the exams and looking for that external training, where shall we send them? To a website, or where should they go?
So we have our website, that is lowesacademy.co.uk. I am also regularly on LinkedIn, so people can connect with me personally. So my name is Shannon Fox. I'm on LinkedIn constantly chatting to people. We do have a LinkedIn page as well, so you'll be able to find Lowe's Financial Academy on LinkedIn as well. We do have a Facebook as well, but most of the time people come to us from LinkedIn.
Do you find LinkedIn is your main source? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, that shadow. Great. Well, listen, thank you so much. Good luck with everything. And I'm sure I'll be coming across people that are looking to do their qualifications, and I'll be happy to send them your way. Oh, excellent. All right, lovely. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks very much. Cheers.